Welcome to Problem Solve, the podcast where me and a special co-host solve all your problems really easily, probably.
Problems? Are you kidding me? I don't have any problems. Okay, I might have a few, but I can work on them with you. Come
on. You're not supposed to do that.
Not supposed to clear your throat?
No, ever.
Really?
Yeah.
You're supposed to just be uncomfortable?
You're supposed to learn, well, yes, as a psilocybin facilitator, yes. But like my voice person, see, you should be recording this.
This is recording.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. My voice therapy person said you're never supposed to clear your throat. That no, you're not necessarily supposed to be uncomfortable, but you're supposed to learn how to take a hard swallow.
Oh.
Instead of clearing your throat, because it puts so much friction, and then it also becomes habit for you to start like all the time.
Huh. I didn't even know that a hard swallow could fix it.
It sounds dirtier than it is.
You said it. I didn't even
That's
go
what they
there.
said. I didn't even think it. So that's
shut
all
the
you.
fuck up. You just thought it. I didn't even say it.
You
all
looked at me. You looked at me like you knew.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyway, I won't continue if you keep clearing your throat.
Okay. Huh. Okay. Interesting. I'm going to try that out. Lindsay, hello.
Hi.
Are you grateful to be here?
I'm so grateful.
I'm really grateful that you're here too.
I'm the most grateful I've ever been.
That's good. That's what you need to say. That's what all guests should say. You're here to talk about psilocybin. And you also, just to disclose to listeners, you were my facilitator on my psilocybin journey.
Oh. I disclosed that, or you disclosed that?
I disclosed that.
Oh, okay. I was like, I swear.
It.
I swear I didn't say anything.
No, just right now, I just disclosed it.
Congratulations.
No, you don't need to congratulate me. I'm just saying, I'm disclosing this to everybody.
Just to be clear, you're disclosing it.
Just to be clear.
Not me.
You have not disclosed it.
Okay.
I'm disclosing it.
I can't confirm nor deny.
Lindsay, can you introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. I'm Lindsay.
And you're a psychologist?
I am a psychologist.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been working in mental health for about 15 years.
Ooh,
I've been
that's a long time. Not as long as me. I've been doing it like a little over 20 years.
Are you going to try to one-up me this entire time? Or
I'm not going to try. I think I naturally will without trying. But...
I mean, even before I entered mental health, people just gravitated towards me since I was born. So.
When I was in the womb, there was so many people talking to my mother's
When I was in the ether
stomachs.
Before I was
in spirit world, I am God. I'm basically God. I'm Jesus.
I can see
I used to be
my
Jesus.
psilocybin session with you really helped.
It really helped.
It really helped you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anyway, I've been a licensed psychologist for about 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's start with psilocybin therapy in Oregon.
Okay. We have to be really careful.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit why we have to be careful.
So Oregon is on what's considered a non-prescriptive model, meaning that you don't need a diagnosis in order to be seen for anything. And we can get into a little bit more of that when we talk about things later. But I can't say like, you're coming to me for therapy and I'm claiming to cure your depression if you come to see me. Mm. So I sort of refer to them as psilocybin sessions. Mm-hmm. We'll see what happens. This is still sort of experimental. Mm-hmm. So we have to be careful. Some people are very comfortable calling it therapy because that's sort of an umbrella term. Mm-hmm. But I like to be extra careful.
Yeah. In my little notes I sent you, I said psilocybin therapy is legal in Oregon. So,
yeah.
Okay, I'll try to.
Some people call it that, and that's okay.
That's okay if I do that.
It's
maybe.
okay. Yes,
but I'm gonna try to change that.
Okay.
So psilocybin, what sessions?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It can happen now in Oregon.
It can happen, yes, legally under a legal framework.
Yes. Can you give us just the quick and dirty version of how that happened and what it means for both practitioners and folks who want to give it a try?
No, I cannot give you a quick and dirty version, unfortunately. I feel like if I just gave you the Oregon part, I'd be doing a great disservice to psilocybin.
Okay.
So psilocybin has been used since before written history. Like some of the first records are in cave paintings, and it's most widely known in its use in Mesoamerica, South America, Mexico. So for thousands.
Oh, you shouldn't clear your throat.
Oh,
you should do a hard swallow, just to let you know. But you were going really good, and I interrupted you. You can continue.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry
Thank you.
about that.
Namaste. Anyway, so really until about the 16th century, it was used widely in the areas I just listed. And during Spanish colonization, they didn't like it. And so it had to go greatly underground. And so it really only existed underground, and it went into sort of more remote places. So this was largely sort of like, I mean, not in that area, but it was sort of folklore for a really long time, until about the mid 1900s. Do you notice my hard swallow?
I saw that you did you see it? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Let's definitely point that out every time we do that.
Every time I hard swallow, it's going to be pointed out.
Okay, good.
I'm really proud of myself. Anyway, so this person met Maria Sabina, is a name that's very well known. She was a medicine woman, and there was sort of like the folklore. People were curious about it, and so this gentleman went down. I'm not going to use a lot of names right now because this is quick and dirty. Went down there, and he wrote an article for Life magazine, and it came back into mainstream. And so then it started getting incorporated into counterculture in the 60s, chemist Albert Hoffman was able to synthesize that in the lab, and they were starting to do research with it. And so for anybody who knows anything about psilocybin, and if you think about the sort of the zeitgeist of the 60s, the government felt very threatened by that. So by 1970, they made it illegal. They made it a Schedule 1 substance, which I can explain more about later maybe. And it became illegal, and it's been illegal since that time. So it really wasn't until like the 90s that your favorite.
I love the 90s.
That it started getting researched again for a whole host of conditions. And so, it started to break through some of the stigma. And federally, it hasn't been rescheduled. And so at the state level, we decided to do something different. So Oregon was the first state. In 2020, we passed a Measure 109, and that was largely a grassroots effort where they got a lot of signatures. They made it a ballot effort. We passed it, and it took about 2 years for Oregon Health Authority to come up with all the regulations, and here we are. So I don't know if that was...
That was pretty quick.
That was literally a whole day, a whole lecture day in my training program. So I was like, how do I make this quick for you? But yeah, that was the arc of history. And if I screwed up details, people can come for me. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about this forever.
Yeah.
And I think there's like probably, there's like a lot of interesting history there that we can have maybe another podcast episode about if we really feel like it.
Maybe with a legitimate historian and not me.
Sure. Yeah. And then so when Oregon sort of okayed it and Oregon Health Authority was like, all right, we're going to figure out how to make this happen.
Yeah.
How long did that take? Was that a couple
that was
years?
a 2-year. That was, I think that was written into the measure, that it was a 2-year period for them to come up with all of the rules and regulations and fees and laws and all of that stuff.
And so what does one have to do in order to be somebody who can like be a facilitator?
Yeah. So facilitator specifically, you have to go through an educational program that's been approved by the OHA. You have to pay lots and lots of fees, which I'm happy to disclose those if you're curious.
How much fees? Yeah.
So it is $2,000 a year to maintain your license. Plus you have to renew the application every year, which is really interesting because with my doctorate degree and my licensing, that's every 2 years. And I think it's around like $950, which is pretty high still. And this is double that.
Yeah, my master's, my like professional counselor license is like $150 every 2 years.
Yeah. So this is much higher than that.
Yeah.
Plus you have to pay a worker fee. I'm not quite sure what that's for, but we all need it.
Okay.
I think that's like 150. And then you have to pay for your training program and all of that too.
Right.
So anyway, so you go through your training. Part of that is a practicum. That can be anywhere from doing a breathwork program to ketamine to doing a full psilocybin retreat. That's still being worked out as we learn more. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a really strict approval process too, where you have to have this pretty,
That sounds like a lot.
and you have to take an exam. I forgot about that. You also have to take a pretty extensive exam.
Can any Joe Schmo off the street decide to do it, or do you have to be in the mental health or healing community?
I believe the only requirement is that you are 18 and have a high school diploma. I will say that the training programs also have a pretty strict, criteria for who they let in. So they're not just going to let any Joe Schmo in. They probably want people to have at least some experience, whether that's underground or, all the way to being a doctor, naturopathic doctor, things like that. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Huh. And also, I think you were kind of hinting at maybe that like anybody who wants to go on that journey, maybe hire you, anybody can do it. You don't have to have a specific diagnosis or issue. It can just be just because you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I do believe there's some piece that says people aren't supposed to use it for recreational use.
Right.
So there at least should be like a reason they're maybe wanting to try it, or at least some intention. But I truly believe even if someone wants to come use it recreational, just to try it, this is a really safe way, probably the safest way that you can do that.
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense. So what got you so into psilocybin? Why are you so obsessed with it?
Well, I've had some pretty transformative experiences myself. I probably was 18 or 19 when I first tried psychedelics and other, non-ordinary states of consciousness.
And that was a good time for you?
Mostly. I've also had some bad times too, which I'm pretty open about. And, that also informs a lot of my work. But yeah, some really transformative in a positive way experiences that have impacted the rest of my life and the way that I see the world and all of that. So, and also just as a clinician and, seeing some of the studies that have come out recently and, there's a lot of potential for neuroplasticity is the term, where people have modes of doing things and ways of thinking about things. And after a session or a series of sessions, they're able to approach problems in a new way and feel like they've achieved another level of healing. And that's really beautiful.
Yeah, I know that it can be like incredibly powerful.
I'm trying really hard not to clear my throat right now.
Yeah, you know what? You can just clear your throat. You do. You just be your authentic self.
No, I'm drinking bubbly water instead, but...
Well, you're doing great not clearing your throat.
Thank you. It's really difficult. This is actually a podcast about clearing your throat. We've changed topics.
Okay, Lindsay, what kinds of issues can psilocybin actually help treat? And are we talking like one session and you're good, or is it a process?
Yeah. So most of the research has focused on things like depression, anxiety, and this is both generalized anxiety and also existential anxiety, end of life anxiety, PTSD. There's also a lot of potential in treating addiction. That can be anything from tobacco to alcohol to opioids. And now I think they're starting to look at meth as well. Obsessive compulsive disorder, neurological things like headaches, stroke, and eating disorders, and probably a whole host of other things that people are it's more accessible to research this stuff now. So we're still gathering information as we go, which is really cool.
And if you were to go in for, a smoking cessation or something, you wanted to stop smoking, do you have to kind of like ask the mushroom gods to focus on this? Or like, do you have to set that intention? Does it just sort of automatically happen to cure all of your addictions that you're not into? What do you do?
There's no have to's in my opinion. You know, I think it's a really good idea to set intention before you go, but I tell people to wear that like a loose garment, not a straight jacket, right? Like you go in and you loosely hold your intention, because mushrooms work in whatever the way they're going to work. They work in mysterious ways. And so you might go in and have the session that seems really unrelated to that, but because it feels like a meaningful thing when you leave the session, then it might be like, oh, I should maybe think about not smoking anymore. So I have had clients before say, though, like after their session, oh, I actually don't feel like going outside and using a tobacco product. So yeah, it's interesting.
And yeah, so is it sometimes, I guess it depends on like what your intention is and what you want to focus on, but is it just sort of like a one-time process, or do most people come back every few months or years?
It's a mix. It's a mix. Yeah. It really depends on the person. Some people have one session that's really intense. And I've heard like them say that was the best, worst thing I've ever done. That was amazing. I got a lot out of it. I never want to do this again. And some people literally were wrapping up and they're like, when can I schedule my next session? That was incredible. So it really depends on the person. And even for people that, you know, before they've done it, have scheduled multiple sessions at a time with me that are sort of back to back, I always say, let's hold the possibility that you might not want to take that second session or move that to a different day. So it really depends on the person.
Yeah. When did I do it with you?
Oh, no.
2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago.
Yeah. Probably about 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How are you feeling?
I mean, I think, you know, I was really nervous and anxious, and I haven't had good experiences with like mushrooms or psychedelics at all. But I have a lot of friends in the community that love it, and I read and listen to all the podcasts, you know, about how wonderful and powerful it can be. And I was in this sort of funky, interesting, weird place in my life where I'd just written this book and I was over it. I'm doing therapy, Jeff. I'm like fucking over it. My family is stupid. I'm over them. Like there's just sort of, and I was also like, I don't know what's next.
Right.
And so there was this kind of I felt a little lost. I was interested in trying to get back on track, whatever that means, like back on track with like, what's my next creative thing going to be? Or is there maybe a slightly different way to think of or relate to my family or something, you know? So I was a little loose, I think.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah. And but I was really nervous. And I remember, you know, when we sat down and you gave me the bowl.
Just to be clear, I did not hand you your mushrooms.
I knew you were going to correct me. Yeah.
I'm not allowed to touch mushrooms, so.
There was a man there, and that man gave me a bowl of mushrooms, and he's a very nice man. And then, and then he left. And I was just like holding this bowl of mushrooms, and I was just like, all my anxiety came up, and I was just like, oh God, I don't know if I want to do this. And I couldn't tell if it was my anxiety from past times or if my body was like, don't do it, guy. Like, this is not for us. But you and I were talking, I think we talked for like 10 minutes or so or something. And it eventually got to a place where it felt really, I don't know. We were being kind of silly. It was feeling kind of easy. The tension and anxiety was going away, and I just really wanted to do it. So I ate those mushrooms, and
your little family of mushrooms.
My little family. Yeah, because there was a mom and a dad and a little child mushroom. Yeah, little baby part, and so we sort of. And it was interesting because you know, part of the reason, like I said, was like, how can I relate differently with my parents? And I don't know if you were joking or if it was a real, like a clinical move or something that you made. Were like, look, it does look like a mom and a dad mushroom, and you said something like, you know, they can be like the mom and dad that you wanted them to be, or what was it? It was something like this can be. It felt like a reparenting opportunity with the wisdom of the mushrooms, and I felt this like warmness towards the mushrooms. And then I ate those mushrooms up. And then it wasn't too long, maybe 15, 20 minutes or something. It hit me pretty quickly. And then I was like, oh, this is really uncomfortable. And like a big part of the rest of those like 4 or 5 hours was me feeling a tension with like where these mushrooms sort of like wanted to lead me. And then another part of me being like, we need this to stop immediately.
Yep.
Yeah. And that was really uncomfortable. But you like, if you weren't there, that would have been incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
But you were like this anchor. You were somebody I could talk to. You were very reassuring. One of the really soothing things is that whenever I asked you for the time, you gave me the time, and I was like, that makes sense. It's that time.
Right.
I was scared that you'd be like, it's been 5 minutes when it felt like 5 hours.
Right.
So
that is like one of the most disorienting things for people.
Is it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell them ahead of time, if you need me to tell you what time it is or where you're at in your journey, if you're feeling like this is going on forever and that feels stressful for you, I'm happy to do that for you as much as you need me to.
Right. And then an hour or 90 minutes in, I think, there was an option to do another mushroom. And I was like, absolutely not. And I think it was when you were like, okay, here's another if you want it. That's when I was like, oh, I'd really like this to stop.
Yeah.
Is how I was feeling. And I also knew I was like, oh, I don't think I ever want to do this again. And then when it was done, I was like, yeah, for sure. Don't really want to do this again. So I don't think I'll ever do it again.
Yeah.
But looking back on that 2 or 3 months from now, side note, my therapist, my personal therapist I see, she's like obsessed with it. She's like, oh my God, you got exactly what you fucking needed.
Yeah.
She's like always trying to like weave it into
Thank you. Thank you, whoever your therapist is.
Allie, you're doing great. It's I don't want to like take over this, and we're going to come back to the questions, but one of the things that I was like left with was just like nothing matters.
Yeah.
And we're on like a flimsy movie set.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And there was this part of me that was like, this is very upsetting.
Yeah.
And then, and I want to just get back into sort of like this, back into reality, whatever. But I was also like, maybe I don't want to go back into what reality was.
Yeah.
And
you weren't too crazy about it before you came in.
Yeah, I wasn't too crazy. Again, and then I was like not crazy at all about it afterwards. All that being said, I'm still working through with my own therapist, like integrating it and trying to understand it. And I feel like it's just something that I'm gonna have to continually unpack. Like you and I had an integration session.
Yes.
And
we can have additional integration sessions.
We can.
By the way.
That'd be great.
It feels like that's what this is true.
I'm not trying to say that we need, but I'm like continuing to talk about it.
Yeah.
It feels like this is just going to be something I might unpack for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so at first I was just like, this didn't work, quote unquote, work for me, whatever the fuck
you think.
Yeah. But then there's this sneaky thing of like, oh, actually, I think it did maybe do, and I have to kind of like open up to that sort of thing.
Yeah. This is why integration is so important. Because we never know. I tell every person I work with, I wish I had a crystal ball. I wish I could tell you exactly how it's going to go, what you're going to get out of it. But it's a surprise for me too, every single time. And so, sometimes people have these beautiful sessions that are just like mind-blowingly, like I'm in tears I'm just like, that was so beautiful. And sometimes people have a really hard time, and there's everything that you can imagine in between. And so how we integrate those experiences and how we apply them to our lives is really, really important.
Well, how do you prep someone for their first trip? You're probably not just like, good luck.
I am. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't just say good luck. So there's a pretty extensive preparation process. So, they reach out to me or one of the service centers that I work at, and they get screened in that way. And then I do a phone call with them to make sure that we feel, aligned enough to move forward. And then I do a really long intake that's structured more. I mean, you went through that too.
Yeah. What sort of questions do you ask?
Really, if you've ever done a therapy intake, it's very similar to that. It's sort of structured in that way where it's asking questions all about your life, but it's also looking for red flag things that would mean that you maybe aren't the best candidate or that you need therapy or other things, interventions before you might consider psilocybin.
Yeah, it's very personal questions.
It is. And I always say you don't have to answer, or like if there's traumas in your life that you'd like to just give me, the highlights of and you don't want to dive into, that's okay, because I'm not serving as your therapist. I'm just trying to create a roadmap of things that might come up so that I know how to support you through something like that. But yeah, it's pretty thorough. And then I offer as much preparation as people need beyond that. If they want to just get to know me on the phone or do extra video calls, there's usually a lot of contact through text or email or whatever feels comfortable for them to help them feel as comfortable with me and with the process as possible. So that's at least how I do it. I don't know if other facilitators are as extra as I am, but I like to offer as much preparation as people will let me. Yeah.
Yeah. And how much psilocybin does somebody take on like a typical journey?
It really depends.
Yeah.
So the maximum amount you can take in the state of Oregon is 50 milligrams. But also, 50? 50.
50?
But that's not grams.
Oh,
so,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, milligrams.
That took me forever too. I know. So 50 milligrams is like 5 grams, basically, that's a pretty good dose. And, because we're getting our mushrooms from manufacturers, there's a range in strengths and experiences too. So it really depends on the strength of mushroom someone wants to use, what type of journey. Someone might want just mild euphoria to help them out of their depression for a little while or whatever. Some people are like, I want to go as deep as humanly possible. I want to max out and do your strongest. So it really depends. Yeah. Typically, a lot of people that seek me out because of my clinical background have done their research and looked at some of the research studies and want to do around the therapeutic dose, which is 25 milligrams.
Okay.
So, but again, that can vary by person and,
and there's so many different strains.
There's so many different strains. There's a lot of variables when we talk about dosage.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are you in your head, or you're like, okay, this would be the perfect trip for them and I hope they go on their journey? Do you have some like mapped out what a perfect trip would look like? Or is it just, I imagine it's just very subjective.
It's subjective. I try not to do that. I try not to come in with a lot of expectations. I try to align with their intention and try to just be very present with them for whatever comes up. There's people that come in that are like, I'm super confident and just like take them. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be great. And then they're like 15 minutes later, they're like, oh no, what have I done? And the opposite is very true. Some people come in very anxious and like, oh, I don't know, but I'm going to do it. And they have beautiful journeys. So you never really know what's going to happen. Ultimately, to me, if we're going to use that word perfect, a great journey is one in which someone feels safe and supported and they're able to have a level of introspection and be able to look at some of the problems they'd like to look at in ways that maybe they haven't looked at before, or ways of looking at the universe, or whatever they get out of their session, that they walk away going like, yeah, I think I got something out of that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
What if it just totally goes off the rails and it's a really difficult one? Are you there? Do you have like a bunch of tools ready to be there for them so that it doesn't feel incredibly overwhelming or scary?
Yeah, I would say so. That's, again, that's individualized. That's a conversation that I have with people before, when things get hard. What are the things that help you feel supported? A lot of my work is also informed by polyvagal theory and somatic experiencing and things like that. So I'm also thinking about what's happening with their nervous systems right now. Are there interventions that I can offer to them that will help them feel a little bit more regulated? So that can be anything from using a stress ball and ice to help them sort of move some of that energy through. It can really help to move out of the room that they're in and walk around the facility, depending on what's happening in the facility that day. Sometimes changing the music can be really helpful, or singing. It just really depends on what that person has said is helpful for them. Every person also has an emergency contact listed. Sometimes, it might not even be an emergency, but it's just that they're feeling really done and they'd like to know that that person is around, or that they're just in the waiting room or something like that. So sometimes that can be very helpful as well.
Yeah. I know that when I was talking to you and we were preparing for it, I was really worried about me feeling bad.
Right.
And so you and I talked about lots of different things that we can do in order to move through those tougher experiences.
Yeah.
And I was really grateful for that.
Yeah.
I think I played with like a little squeeze toy or something.
I have a variety of those for people. So that seems to help some folks. I also, I hope is it okay if I share a little piece about your session?
Yeah.
You also had this really natural ability to gravitate towards your resources that you already had. So you gravitated towards positive things in your life, positive relationships. So I'll often do that with people too. Like, wow, we're really diving into the like heaviness of this stuff right now, and it seems like this is really overwhelming. Is that okay with you to stay there? Or do we maybe want to think about something beautiful that's happened to you in the last week or two? And sometimes that can help just regulate the nervous system a little bit, to make it a little bit more tolerable, whatever's coming up.
That makes sense. Yeah. And we also got to visit different settings, different places. Yeah. Yeah. And, visited a couple and they had very different vibes.
Yeah.
So that seemed very helpful too. And hopefully people, I don't know if everybody, well, I guess in Oregon, hopefully there's like places in different like different
service centers.
Service centers.
Okay.
Yes.
I was like, what are we trying to say?
I don't know what else. I was trying to remember what they're called. Yeah. Different service. How many are in Portland?
Service centers?
Yeah.
I don't know, actually. That's something I don't know. I would say I hear about the same sort of like 8 to 10 service centers over and over again, but there's probably some that I don't know about. And also there's some that are outside of Portland as well, and Eugene and Ashland. And so. Yeah.
If you were to like, do this whole journey with a practitioner like you at a service center, it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
I have mixed feelings about it.
What are your mixed feelings?
My mixed feeling. I mean, most of us, if not all of us, have some sort of pricing structure. I know for myself, I'll go all the way down to $0 for someone if they really need to access the medicine, because that's the part that I can control. And I've set my pricing structure up in a way that some people can pay full price and some people can't, and then it evens out. But the reason I think it's so expensive is because of the costs that we incur. Training programs, my training program, I think ended up being around $9,000. And then with the fees that I already talked about and another training, I mean, I've seen a range in prices for training programs. The most expensive one I've seen was $28,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's people that rave about that. They're just like, that's an amazing, I'm sure it is, but
better be.
Better be. But I think that presents a lot of issues with accessibility and, also only certain types of people are going to be able to get trained. Right. So, I know at this point, I'm just barely breaking even after I've done a lot of sessions with all of the fees that I've paid. So, anytime something's going to be regulated at state level, especially if it's something new like this, right, it's going to come down on all the different parties. So we have our fees. Manufacturers have a huge fee. Service centers have huge fees. Plus they're subject to really high taxes because it's a controlled substance, right? And they don't get the same write-off sometimes. So it's just like a trickle down thing. So that being said, most of us though, even though it's expensive for people who can afford it, most of us have some sort of program or structure set up so that we can make it more accessible for people who need it.
It's just crazy it makes sense. I totally get that.
Yeah.
And like these mushrooms are something that just sort of grow from the earth. And also, it feels like these sort of white people are taking it and making it into a whole thing. Right. So there's that side of it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So that's what I mean. I'm mixed. I see that, I see the potential in it. I think it's hard because this type of medicine has been given freely for a long time. And, anytime we do something, we try to come out. We look at the cannabis industry as another great example, right? There's a lot of us that have a lot of controversial things to say and thoughts about it. Yeah, but ultimately, I'm glad this is here and that people are able to gain healing from it.
Yeah. So why shouldn't somebody just kind of find the mushrooms on their own and do it in their basement or in the forest? Like, why go find a practitioner?
I mean, people always have the ability to choose to do something like that. You know, but because there is potential for bad trips, and a lot of people will call them challenging experiences, I purposefully call them bad trips because they can be downright terrifying. They can be awful. Or if you have a pre-existing condition or something like that, you know, there's a lack of safety. There's a lack of regulation. If you just go out if you're just picking mushrooms out of the forest on your own, being like, the internet said this is okay. Like, you might get in trouble, right? Yeah. And so through this process, you have very dedicated manufacturers. It's lab tested. It's you know what you're getting, and you have people who have a lot of training who are there to sit with you and be with you and help you through challenges and help you integrate your experience. So I feel like there's a huge amount of value to that.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. I think there's like the limited amount of the like experiences I've had with it outside of our experience. It was garbage and scary.
And you've had experiences with people who are, I hope that's okay, you know, underground that maybe, you know, weren't so amazing. And that type of stuff scares me. You don't always know who you're getting or what kind of actual experience or training they've had.
And I just had to sort of rely on what they said about themselves, you know? And so it does feel comforting that there's just sort of like this.
There's an added level of structure.
Yeah,
totally.
Can you tell us what is the weirdest thing that has ever happened to someone during a trip? Or can you not say that because you suck?
I'm going to have to say that I suck. Mostly, I mean, you know, ethically, we have to keep these sessions confidential and private.
You don't suck then. You're a very
I just suck a
person.
little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I will say I have a really rich dream life when I go to sleep. And I woke up from a particular weird dream the other night and I thought, you know, my waking life is starting to sort of like be just as weird as my dream life, which I welcome. It's fun. You know, I've definitely seen some things. I think I'm careful of labeling things as weird. I've seen some really interesting things. I've seen some really beautiful things. I'm a huge weirdo. It's going to take a whole lot to weird me out. So, you know, I definitely have a very interesting job. But I'm not going to give you anybody's details. Yeah, I can tell you one thing that happened that I wouldn't say it's weird, but I feel really bad. Is that about 30% of people get some sort of nausea or stomach issues. And all throughout my training, everyone said, you know, a lot of people get nausea. They're never going to throw up. That's just not going to happen. That will not happen to anybody. Just tell them to ride the wave or come up with some sort of metaphor to help them like breathe through it. It will subside. And so I saw someone and I told them, you're not going to throw up. We just had to find a way. Let's breathe through it. You're on a roller coaster. I mean, I tried all the tricks. Lo and behold, 15 minutes later, it was sick city. So I can't tell people that anymore. I have to say in rare instances, you might.
That makes sense.
You might get sick.
Yeah. Thankfully, I did not get sick.
You did not.
No.
Yeah.
Look at you. Did you forget to swallow hard, or did you just couldn't do it?
I just tried to hide it from the microphone.
Yeah, well, you didn't do very well.
It went like 2 feet away. I did it very, very, very gently.
It sounded kind of adorable. So if that's what you're aiming for.
I try to do that, not clearing my throat, but sometimes in breath work, they'll be like, hold your breath. And I'll like very gently cheat. I'll very gently like take little breaths because that's what my body wants. I was going to say don't tell anybody, but outing myself. Yeah. Oops.
Sometimes when I'm doing my Orange Theory fitness and they say do 12 chest press, I only do like 9 or 10.
Whoa. I mean, that explains.
What?
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm huge. I don't think I'm always cheating at workouts. I never do as many. It's also like a rebellious thing, I feel like.
Yeah. I can't cheat. I have a personal trainer that I hired and she's on me. So
yeah, that's the problem with personal trainers. Yeah. I do lots of cheats though. Yeah. Oh, one of the things that I was like concerned with when we were doing it together was I was like so concerned with your time. It's like, are you going to be so fucking bored? Like, shouldn't I be telling you stories the whole time?
Yeah.
And you know, it lasts what, 4 or 5 hours, maybe more,
sometimes longer.
right?
Yeah.
And you're just fucking sitting there the whole time, and you weren't even on your phone.
Yeah. No.
You were just present with me the whole time.
Yeah.
You probably weren't bored with me because even if I'm laying there, I'm so engaging. I just have like an engaging presence. People love to be around me.
I think you need another session, maybe.
But other people, do you get bored as fuck? Like, are you just dying to get out of there?
No.
Why are you lying about this?
I'm not lying.
Really?
Yeah. No.
I can't imagine. If I was in your position, there's got to be a part of me that's staring at the clock. When I asked you about this, you said something like, it's such an intimate experience.
It is.
Why does it feel so intimate to you? Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I'm really like holding this space for someone. And it is, I would call this a sacred space. This is a sacred thing they're doing for themselves, right? And there's nothing more captivating than that to me. That's why I'm drawn to this. I am not bored. I'm not trying to get on my phone. In fact, if I have to get on my phone, like to pay for my parking, for instance, I even try to do that really strategically, so that that's not disruptive of the space that I'm holding for someone. So I'm, like I said, it's the most interesting job in the world. Even if someone's just laying there, I'm sitting there thinking like, what are they thinking about right now? I wonder what they're seeing, or like, I wonder what they're exploring right now, or, you know, I wonder if they need anything, or I'm never bored.
I know this is different for everybody, but typically on average, or is there a range, like how talkative are you? How much are you actually like engaging with the person? Is it just totally different?
It really depends on the person and their needs. We're also supposed to be what's called non-directive. So if I am engaging, I'm trying to do things in ways where I'm encouraging the person to go back into themselves and explore their inner world. Some people are really having a hard time though, or they're having a flood of memories from, you know, childhood or whatever's happening. They just really need someone to witness that or to be with them through that. So, you know, some people need me to do a little bit more talking than others, but I definitely try to listen as much as possible and try to do less and just give them the floor or try to redirect them back into themselves.
Yeah. Is it true that you shouldn't look in the mirror when you're on mushrooms?
I think looking in the mirror is one of the coolest things you can do on mushrooms. That is like a misconception. And I mean, maybe if you're having a really hard time, I've heard people though that have been having a hard time looking in the mirror, and it's sort of like, oh yeah, there I am. Oh yeah, I'm still here. I'm still the same person. I'm just going through a mushroom journey right now. So I always found it really fascinating for myself. I can't speak to other people, you know, what other people are saying, but I've sort of seen my most sort of magical self when I've looked in the mirror and been like, oh, hey, you. So, but you know, if you're feeling fearful about it before you come in, you could go one of two ways. You could just not look, or you could do what I like to do, which is sort of face the fear and see what's there, face it head on and see if you can be curious about it.
I think at one point I went to the restroom and I think I only did like a little peek.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
And then maybe the time after that you peek a little bit longer.
I'm never doing it again. So
yeah, well,
fuck it.
That's what you think.
Are there people who just shouldn't do psilocybin therapy that are just like ruled out?
Absolutely.
Who's that?
Yeah. So those would be people who have a diagnosis of some sort of psychotic disorder. So schizophrenia, bipolar disorder with manic episodes, depression with psychotic symptoms, things like that. And the reason is because that presentation is pretty like disorganized in their brain already. And we don't want to sort of scramble. We say we're scrambling your brains a little bit here in a good way, hopefully. Right. But we don't want to scramble that presentation up anymore. There's other, physical conditions like heart conditions, high blood pressure that we want to make sure is well managed, or it's an entire rule out. So yeah, those, and then also just, if people are having, have really severe mental health presentations that haven't done work on this otherwise. They're sort of hoping this is the magic trick, and they have never done any work on it. I'm probably going to say, hey, it's probably a good idea if you go to therapy or try some other things first. So you have some coping skills in case your session is a little bit hard.
Yeah, that makes sense. And there's, did you say there's like certain medications that you are on that, which ones like?
What medications am I on? Excuse me?
You shouldn't do psilocybin if you're doing specific medications.
There's some that, psilocybin is actually one of the safest.
Okay.
If you look at all these charts and stuff that are out there, it's like one of the safest medications you could take. But, if you're on SSRI medication, there is a rare risk for what's called serotonin syndrome.
What does that mean?
You need to go to the ER, basically. Like, there's too much serotonin going on.
Got it.
But where we're maxing out dosage at 50 milligrams, that's still pretty safe.
Okay.
The problem is that it blocks some of the effects of psilocybin. So you usually have to take about twice as much as someone who's not on SSRIs. And then you just run that slight risk. So we've also found we're learning things as we go. There's certain medications, and OHA has a really nice chart. I'm not going to go through all of those right now. That's sort of like, just usually it's a blunting effect of the psilocybin. So, but OHA makes that pretty widely available if people are curious about, if their medication would interfere. They can always ask their facilitator.
Got it. Is there some really big misconceptions out there that people have about psilocybin journeys?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think it depends on who you're asking, but probably people thinking that it's like, that are still affected by the, stigma that it's taken on over time, right? That it's just this recreational thing, which some, of course some people use it that way, but that it's just this thing for hippies and, that it's just this recreational fun thing. And it's not always fun, as you've spoken to, right? I would say that's probably the biggest misconception. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
There's like, it felt like the government was trying to do a good job of making us all, I don't know, worried or scared about it, or that it's like, it's a schedule.
Oh yeah. That was the other thing I was going to say, is that people think that you will go crazy on it.
Right.
And, I don't know if you ever heard the like sort of folklore tale that like this person took too many mushrooms and they turned into a tree and they never came back. And I'm someone that's like, that actually sounds sort of nice. I'd love to be a tree and not come back. But I don't think that's true. And most people in a safe setting like this are going to be okay. I definitely have had people do what's called reality testing, where they're like, this is really weird. And like, I don't know what's going on. It's almost like a toddler. It's sort of like reality tests and wants to see what's real and what's not. And that's why it's important to, that person, that type of person probably isn't going to go crazy. They're just having some moments, right? That they need someone there to help them through and set boundaries with. So, I think that's probably the biggest one, is that like, you'll go crazy and you'll just like never come back. People come back.
Yeah. I wasn't ever afraid that I wasn't going to come back, but I was, like you said earlier, my brain did feel scrambled.
Yeah. Mushy.
Yeah. Scrambled and mushy. And it was like, kind of like slowly coming back into reality, whatever. But that was kind of the most uncomfortable or difficult sensation, was like on the 5th hour or something. I was just like, I don't want to feel this anymore. I'm done. And it's like, I'm definitely past the big parts, but I'm not back into, like the walls were a little funky, or remembering things was difficult, or everything just didn't quite make sense, or then it would, and then it wouldn't, and then it would, and then it wouldn't. And I was listening to some like Nada Surf, and I was like, oh, this is really great, but I'm hearing it in a different way. This is very upsetting. So it was like, I just kept on kind of going in and out until eventually, it's okay. And I remember my girlfriend picked me up, and when she picked me up, I was just like, I just don't want to be in this fucking car right now. I want to be at home, like in my room
Yeah.
or like on my couch or something. So
Yeah. And that is pretty common because
Yeah.
people also, I'd say more than me not wanting to be in a space for that long, people themselves that are taking the mushrooms at a certain point are sort of like, okay, I'm done being here. Even if things still feel a little squiggly to me, I really just want to be back in my hotel room or back in my house wearing comfy clothes and just watching cartoons and just not doing this anymore, which is, I understand that. That's okay.
yeah, that's fair. Do you have, you might not know this, but do you have any idea, like, are there other states that are trying to work on legalizing it, like Oregon has legalized it?
Yeah.
Is that happening across the country?
I wouldn't say it's happening across the country. Colorado just legalized it, so they're sort of trying to rapidly catch up. They're right behind us. I'd say a lot of eyes are on Oregon to see how we're doing it, and so that people can take from that and also maybe do things a little bit differently or, dare I say, better. But it's challenging because it's still a Schedule I substance, meaning that has no therapeutic or medicinal value, that there's high addiction potential. So it's scheduled the same as something like heroin. And it's a really big process to get that changed. So
even though there is no, is there any addiction problems to it?
It's actually considered anti-addictive.
Right. Yeah.
So most people aren't like, woo, I just finished it, I'm going to do more. I mean, some people are, but I don't want to say no one's like that.
Fiending for it,
no,
maybe?
they're not. They're not like waiting on the corner for the guy who has the shrooms. So, so no, I disagree with that. And I think they schedule it at that high level because it made it really challenging for us to get where we are today and where we're trying to go. It was really threatening to the government. So anyway, so I forgot the original question.
You answered it.
Okay.
If other states were working on it.
Oh, yeah. And there probably are other states working on it right now.
But if you're out of state, can you come to Oregon?
Yes. And so that's a high number of the people who are contacting me. Yeah. I would say probably about 70 to 80% of people are coming from out of state.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot of people.
Yeah. And then there's a fair number of people who are local. We'd love to have more local people, giving us a try as well, though.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to add to the discussion? I asked you all the questions. You did great.
Thank you. So much gratitude.
And you barely audibly cleared your throat. There was only a few times.
There was definitely a few times where I could hear myself swallowing very hard. I was like, oh no.
It came through in my headphones. I'm not sure it's going to come through in everybody else's though. But we can ask Andrea to edit out those real hard swallows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should I add anything about the places I work or anything like that?
Sure.
So the two of the service centers that I work out of are Seven Gate Sanctuary, which is in Southeast Portland, and Immersive Therapies, which is in Northwest Portland. So that's where people can reach out and find me if they like, or if they'd like more information. I'm always happy to answer questions, even if they're not seeking, this service at this time.
Yeah. And do you have a website people can check you out at?
It's drlindsaylerner.com. So, and then some of my specialty areas, I'm really leaning towards the end of life terminal diagnosis. I'm also a death doula. And, so those are some of my, favorite, they're very heavy sessions, but it's really beautiful and it's really needed work. And then I also work with a lot of, because of my mental health background, trauma and depression, anxiety, that kind of stuff.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the pod.
Thanks for having me.
You are wonderful.
You're wonderful.
I am. Bye.
Bye.